Okay, so just to say that for me is really a great pleasure to have with us Anne Lacaton and Jean-Philippe Vassal. And what you say? Well, probably they don't need a presentation because probably you know that they won this year the Pritzker Prize of Architecture. And so what we can say about them? I would repeat what Jean-Philippe said to me in Berlin, that first of all they are good people. I don't know if you remember the presentation you give at my conference in Berlin at the 𝗜𝗣𝗘𝗥, and because I mean, they are beautiful people and they are intelligent, courageous, and generous. And that is why they make architecture that are never obvious, that manage to give intelligent and complex answer to complex problem. I was immensely happy when I learned that they won the prize, and I immediately told them by phone that there were many of us who had won with them, because there are a lot of architects who share their vision of the world, of architecture, of the city. So there are many things to say, but I want to be really short and pass you the floor. Just to say that we know each other since '97, when I visit the Maison La Tapie with Anne. There was an exhibition in Arc and Rev in Bordeaux, I remember. And then in the following year, I already invited them to Rome for a conference in '98, and then many times for a workshop conference. And we did also, we tried to do a competition for Corviale, talking about periferie and banlieue today. Then I always followed them closely. I've seen many of their works during the design phases, the building site works, and also finished and inhabited. So just few words to say that they studied in Bordeaux, and then they passed to Africa, to Niger, and where they built a small hut in which all their poetics, it's already done, it's already there, we can say. And then in the '90s, they developed a series of fantastic single family houses. And then in 2001, they moved to Paris, beginning the first part of the Palais de Tokyo that ended in 2012. And then there are many buildings that I can say, just the two for education I love so much, the Université de Grenoble, l'École d'Architecture de Nantes. And then to go to the periphery, just remember the Tour Bois les Prêtres of 2011 in Paris, where Anne and Jean-Philippe started a series of projects for the other context of what in French they call HLM, and we call città pubblica or 167, that is the law. And so I asked to Anne and Jean-Philippe to talk about periphery, since this is the topic of this big festival. But I just want to thank you, and I turn the floor to you, and thank you very much to be with us.
Thanks a lot, Piccio. You know that it is always a pleasure to discuss with Roma. It would be better directly with you.
Thank you.
Probably after we could take a little aperitif, and you always know very, very good restaurants. But anyway, even through online communication, we are happy to be with you. I think what is important about the periphery, it's difficult to talk about the periphery, and especially as with our project, because periphery, it's about a landscape. It's about how the buildings react to each from one to another. What is the space between? What is the nature? What is the landscape of this? It is this that is interesting. Unfortunately, it is very difficult to situate our position, because we don't want to be official urbanists. Then we have to only to be architects. And then we have to try to see how with our buildings we can try to develop urbanism, but we are always limited to our building. In fact, the best practice would be to, if we could work together with you or with probably some people that are invited also at this meeting, it is how we can bring the architecture and a different way of practicing urbanism together. Actually, there is a really big crisis of urbanism. We are just following some few people making urbanism, and are defining some plots, and they say do that on your plot and not else. And this is a really difficult situation. So it's why with Anne, we wanted to show one building in Bordeaux that is about its transformation. But perhaps we wanted to come back to another situations we worked 10 years ago that can be interesting in the case of your event. And it is about La Courneuve, which is a suburb just in the northwest of Paris. That is really the banlieue around Paris. Perhaps we can share our screen.
Yes, thanks.
And it is also to say that sometimes projects went well and sometimes projects don't go well. And so to start, we will show you a project that unfortunately has not been successful.
So do you see the presentation, or?
Yes.
The title, is it the title?
Yes, if you can put, yes, full screen. Okay, perfect.
So it is La Courneuve. La Courneuve in the northwest of Paris, and you see the landscape of La Courneuve. In fact, La Courneuve, it was called the 4000 because in 1964, 4,000 dwellings were built with these big slabs in the landscape, and you see in black all these different and long buildings in the landscape of La Courneuve. In 2004, 1,300 buildings have been demolished. You see the red ones, Ravel, Pressoff, Renoir, Debussy, that have been demolished, and 300 new buildings have been rebuilt. So there was a loss of a number of dwellings. In 2010, there was some new buildings built, and in 2012 again there was demolition. 1,600 buildings, dwellings have been demolished, and only few buildings rebuilt. So you can see that year after year the territory has been changed, and the period of these buildings of the 60s, one after the other, disappear, in a situation in France where there is a big lack of new buildings, because a lot of people are asking for flats in the periphery of Paris. So this question that we lose some flats when we need some flats is really problematic, and it's why also we wanted to work on the question of the density, because in the situation of urban situation, it is important to consider this density, but also the way how we can save the ground for activities. there was clearly some questions about violence and insecurity. So with all these demolitions of these blocks that happened during the former years, where they say, for example, La Courneuve invents a new feature, and in fact, this new feature, it is about demolition, and for us, it is an incredible violence that happens at this moment. But it is clear that you have some difficulties. Here, like this, in Le Figaro, in the Tower Balzac, some graffiti threatened the policemen. Nique les porcs, and other kind of graffiti, fuck people, fuck police, etc. But I want to come back to the beginning. This photograph is interesting because it was at the beginning of the construction of these buildings. And what you see on the lower part of the photo, it is a slum. In the 60s, people were living in kind of favela with no water, no hygiene, no toilets. And finally, we can think that at this moment, the construction of these big buildings was incredibly positive. So it is really important for us to consider that the starting point of these buildings have been this generosity about conditions of living. Also, in these places, there was a sort of poetry that were there, and I take the image of Marina Vladi exactly in the place of La Courneuve, because it was the film of Jean-Luc Godard, Deux ou trois choses que je sais d'elle, 2 or 3 things I knew from her. And the film was done in the place of La Courneuve. She's wearing a midnight blue sweater with 2 yellow stripes. So yeah, it was a memory.
It was celebrating also a new way of life brought by these new developments.
So La Courneuve, with these buildings, with the nature now that it is there, with people new coming back in the nature and observing this nature, trying to understand what it is, what are the plants, the inhabitants, like they are in the photo that are made in the living rooms. And I was quite angry when I see this photo because it was at the moment of the demolition. So it seemed that the mayor of the city decided to make some photo, kind of like official photo, in the living room of the inhabitants just before their flats to be demolished. And this is incredibly cynical to the situations, people that love to be there, that were happy in their flat, that you see that take a lot of care of their flat, and finally these people have they had to move and to be pushed away to go to new flats. And young people playing, making sports. So the question was precisely, you see this big building in the back, it is called Le Mail de Fontenay, and here there is 300 dwellings, and the municipality of the city proposed us as a competition to work on the refurbishment of this building. And it is actually still the only one building remaining from the situation. So we analyze the current situation, overcrowded. In fact, there was, you can see in orange, all the flats where you have too many occupants. In gray, it is normal, and yellow, it is under-occupied. So it is important to see that you have 1.7 people when you should have 1 in the flats. Quality of the dwellings. All the dwellings are through housing with balcony, south-oriented, 2 apartments per deserved landing, no long corridors, 1 elevator for 15 dwellings, 2 elevators per staircase, last level not served by the elevator, and alternate service of the floors per each elevator. Dwelling surface corresponds to the lower surfaces of the new standard housing. And in fact, we consider the small living rooms. In fact, we see also that the rents are not very high and really keep affordable. And we see the difference of size of the flats considering the Mailles de Fontenay and new housing, where we see also that we had more bigger typologies than in the standard buildings done now. So we had some analysis of the different typologies, the type 3, type 5, type 4, and you can see here how it was from the outside. But in the same time, this idea of improving the quality of refurbishment for us, it is linked with also the qualities that the modern movement can give. It is also with more balconies, more freedom on the balconies, more opening to the outside. And these questions for us were interesting to develop. And you can see here some references of buildings that have not been just at the limit as the one that were done in the banlieue, but precisely because they were in the city or in more rich situations, they have this maximum of their quality was expressed. Like Pouillon in Paris, for example. And also to see that you have some possibilities of life at the ground floor close to these buildings. So at this time, we had started the work on some project of transformation, like the Tour Bois-le-Prêtre with Frédéric Druot. So we explained then precisely the possibility of transformation by adding winter gardens, new elevators, new bedrooms or new kitchen. And on this project, we were also showing the cost that was 95,000 euros by flat, and the possibility of transformation that you can see here. That was expressed by this image at this time, and now that is finished, and that gives this this image. Or the project in Saint-Nazaire, where it was possible to consider one building and to see how it was possible to densify and to improve the qualities of the existing by several process of transformation from inside, enlarging the bathroom taking the place of a bedroom, then finding the place for a new bedroom outside the building, extending the balcony to a winter garden and another balcony, and to see how this can be extended to a densification area. That is also finished now. So it's also a lot about money. And the general situation in France, it is also why all these questions are architectural, but at also an urban scale and also at a political scale and social scale. And all these considerations are really important to take in mind. In France, since 15 years, 30 billions of euro have been spent for the national program of transformation. And in this sum, we have for demolition 3 billion euro, that only for demolition of 113,000 units that have been demolished for a cost of 26,000 euro by unit. And because it is necessary to reconstitute the offer, the same number of flats, 12.6 billion of euro have been also spent to rebuild only 105,000 units. So, in fact, you can see that the political program is able to spend 15 billion euro to lose 7,700 dwellings. And in the same time, you can see that the part for refurbishment, it was only 3.25 billion euros, so it means 13 thousand euro by unit. So in a way, you have an extremely waste of money to demolish and build less than what you demolish, and in the same time, you can see that with what you have as money for the renovation, it is so little that in fact it has absolutely no influence and no result on the life of the comfort of the inhabitants. So coming back to La Courneuve, here was the such situation. In fact, at this time, there was only two buildings remaining, the building A and the building B, plus also this tower. So these other buildings, Debussy, Ravel, Pressoff, Renoir, already were demolished before. And for us, the question was to work only on the refurbishment of building Blue for these 300 flats, because the building B, which name was Balzac, was only 10% occupied, empty, because people didn't want to leave, and it was planned to be demolished at this time. So a crazy situation. So it means that for the demolition of the building Balzac, there was 11 million euros. So it means that demolition of 300 units of these buildings, it was 36,000 euros by unit. The reconstruction of 154 units of Balzac, it was 18 million euros. So it means 120,000 euros by unit. So to lose 155 dwellings, 30 million euros was spent. And in the same time, for the renovation of Mail de Fontenay, only 4 million euros, so it means 12,000 euros by unit. So it is with these numbers, with this economy, that there is a real paradox, there is a real scandal about how the transformation can be done. So for us, and what we propose, because already we had some contacts with the inhabitants and with the municipality, was to say, oh, it is possible to create the conditions of an optimal and ambitious transformation of the housing block Mail de Fontenay. To finance the transformation of the housing block cost around 60,000 euros by housing instead of 12,000. To start the transformation very quickly, to have in the neighborhood empty dwellings available to de-densify the block and to be able to quickly rehouse the families. So, because the neighbor building, housing building was Balzac, it was empty, only 10% occupied by families who resist to leave, with demolition is imminent, becomes the opportunity to create the conditions of the most ambitious transformation for Mail de Fontenay and for Balzac. So then it was clear that the strategy was to solidarize Mail de Fontenay and Balzac. And the proposal to reconsider the situation of building B, Balzac, that was empty, and develop a project for the totality of the two buildings, A and B. It means instead of, for the Mail de Fontenay and the 300 flats and the overpopulated population, with a rehabilitation planned during 5 to 10 years, with only a budget of 4.5 million euros, that was totally insufficient. But with Balzac, where we had 286 flats empty, with a demolition plan in 2011 and reconstruction of 150 flats, with a budget of 28 million euros, which means 185,000 euros by flat, and a loss of 132 flats on the site. Instead of that, it was clear that if you make A plus B and abandon demolition of B, add up of the budget, 4.5 plus 28.6, you have 33 million euros that give a possibility to transform simultaneously the 787 flats for a cost of 56,000 euros by flat. That was totally possible to give the best conditions of living for the two buildings. So it was also giving the possibility to engage immediately the operation of transformation using the opportunity of Balzac B being empty and over 30 months, so it means much faster than the planned by the municipality. So it means A plus B, so 300 flats transformed, 286 flats transformed for Balzac for the same cost, 33 million euros, 57,000 euros by flat, and 587 dwelling transformed, upgraded to a level superior to standard new building. So the scenario could give the possibility with two buildings that were in a close proximity to make the system of different phases, starting one block by one, part of a block by part of the block, and to engage the processes of transformation quite easily. So inside the blocks, there was this possibility to change little the typology from the existing. It was possible to decompress the inside of the flats by changing little the typology, by refurbishing the communal collective parts, changing the elevators, etc., and to add new winter gardens and add balconies. And then we have from the existing one flat that it is really transformed in a much sustainable way and with better conditions. Like from that situation to go to that situation, to give these possibilities, to say that these buildings that were built in the 60s at the minimum can now find the qualities and the pleasure of inhabiting like the best of the same typology in the most expensive areas of the cities. To give this transformation, also to think about the way we can use the ground floor to create little gardens for all the inhabitants. Each one can have a little garden for vegetables on front, and to see how the contact with the ground floor and the flowers and the tomatoes and vegetables can be assumed, and to show how the landscape can be connected with the flats. And also to see that there is no, it's not really a question to have this kind of contrast between very small little houses existing and these big long blocks. It is the richness of the city with all the periods that are working all together, and that at the end makes a very interesting mixity of little houses with little gardens and flats in the better situation as possible. So this was our proposal for the Maille de Fontenay. It was not accepted, and unfortunately the building Balzac has been demolished, and the building Maille de Fontenay is still now, 12 years later, exactly in the same condition as it was before, only just much more degraded, and probably in 2, 3, 4 years it will be demolished. And after this bit sad story, I leave Anne for the better one.
Yes, after this this failed situation where we were very much involved, and also the great disappointment is the situation is that during the studies we were doing, we met many times the authorities, the mayor, and he also invited us to present this project to the inhabitants of the building, and it's clear that the inhabitants were really amazed, because they all questioned, but is it real that we can have this? And they were really suddenly they gained a kind of optimism that their situation could change. And that just at the end, the mayor say, okay, this could be possible. We have not yet the budget, but we are looking for it. And the inhabitants said, but finally they proposed a solution to have the money immediately, because the money is there if we share it with the two buildings. So, and finally, afterwards, in a very unknown situation, we receive a letter that we had to stop the project and no, not continue. But every project is also we learn at every project. It's always a lesson, and it gives even more the motivation to continue. And some time later, we had the opportunity to work on another project, another suburb in Bordeaux. A big neighborhood of again 4,000 units built in the 60s, 70s, which at the time was a little a part of the city center, but today, with the expansion of the city center, it is in a much better situation with more equipment and a quite good place to live. We were, but in the city, it's a quite prominent situation, because the city of Bordeaux is a stone city and very low. And all these buildings, Le Grand Parc neighborhood is with more or less 15 levels, 15 to 20 levels, appears as a very big neighborhood in the landscape of the city. But these buildings we have to work with is three buildings of social housing, 530 dwellings, all rented, with rather low rents, and absolutely fully occupied, with no vacancy inside. And for a while, the municipality has a project to demolish and to rebuild less dwellings with much lower buildings. But the company of social housing, HLM, who belongs this building, was the director was not really in line with the demolition, and he tried to convince the mayor not to do it. And we were invited to make a project on this place. So it's clear that so finally the mayor accepted not to demolish, but also one of the arguments is that it's very, very difficult and very long to find 530 dwellings empty, to relocate all these families before the demolition, and they were not in situation to build all of this around. So it was also kind of practical and economical argument. So what is clear when we, as Jean-Philippe explained in the former project, that on such a situation, it's absolutely important not to stay far away outside, like we are in this picture, and just to say, okay, it's quite ugly and there is nothing to do, but it's the most important is to go inside and to visit all the situations. And from this visit, we can see that this building is made of, is not a block, but it's made of 500 houses, from 500 homes, with all inside a value which has been given over the years by all the inhabitants. And the value is extremely important. And after the visit, it's clear that the block is not anymore in our mind, but much more this huge number of situations that we think how we could do to improve the quality of this without losing anything, without damaging anything, but just to improve from inside the situation, to upgrade technically, to upgrade the space, to expand the space when it's too small, and make the works to bring this to these buildings a new life for again 50 to 60 years, but considering first the quality of living and not only the technical improvement. So from that situation, we propose that the works should be made in occupied sites. It means without moving any families during the process of construction, and we propose to make an extension with no important works inside, such as working on breaking walls or opening walls, but just a large extension on the south facade of 4 meters in front, and also inside it could be, it should be only new electricity, bathroom, paintings, flooring, but all works that can be done while inhabitants are still there. Also, the improvement of the number of elevators and the replacement of the old elevators. So, at the scale of one building, the process is this one. This operation of addition of a kind of prefabricated new floor, which comes in front of the facade. All this work outside has no impact of the life inside, so we work outside. And then there is the interface with the facade, which is the existing facade is removed. The parapet, the handrails are broken, and the new glass facade comes there. So the method of construction, which is extremely important in such projects because it has to be defined at the very beginning of the design, because of the when people stay inside, it's important to think what will be the impact of the works. So the construction of the extension, the replacement of facade, and then the final extension, while the interior works are made separately with a different schedule. And this expansion has been done at every level and for every dwellings, with no consideration of rooms, but just to give this, like in a house, also the possibility of opening onto a winter garden or a balcony from every room of the dwellings, and to create doing that also to create more mobility and more freedom inside the dwelling. So starting from this situation, the process of extension with these modules and the final result, which has totally transformed the building and its quality, while everything was conserved, was kept and improved and added what was missing to give this quality. So the process more in detail. First, the new foundations to support the extension, which should not be supported by the existing building. Then the arrival of these blocks, which were prefabricated 2 kilometers away and just brought on the site and placed from the track to the final place, just guided by two workers, and then level by level. The process of just fixing the connections, the columns, the slabs, and so on. And when a few levels are already built, the process of changing the facade can start. The change of the facade, which is the first task, which is really disturbing the inhabitants, has been done for every dwelling in 2 days. With the first day, the opening of the parapets of the handrails. The second day, the new frames for the glass windows, isolated glass windows that come to replace the existing windows. The closing of the winter garden, and a few weeks later, all this can be open, and the family can take the use of the winter garden. So the process of opening first the protection is put inside, because the family has to stay during the works, and sometimes if it's too noisy, we had one apartment where the family could go for a day to have the lunch and to rest if the works were too noisy, but they could stay inside, and behind this partition, the works could continue, the openings of handrails, and then the new frames, and the finishes on the place of the handrails that could be done later with the finishes of the inside, and then the appropriation of the winter garden. So this process, again, from inside out, means the improvement of the interior quality from this existing situation, to the new situation with much larger opening. And the Winter Garden, which is a space with no program, with no conventional function, and it's really the place of the appropriation and the creativity for all the families, but also the change of the environment, because the neighbor building has been also transformed in the same way. So it changes the total neighborhood. And what's also is interesting is those extensions, those winter gardens, they also offer an extremely efficient energy saving, because they replace an installation while they also offer the new use for the house. Here you can see the large glass window with the thermal curtains, which also allows in the winter to keep the warm inside. The winter garden, which is rather large, with nearly 3 meters inside plus 1 meter balcony, which allows to have a lot of activities and a lot of furniture. The openings also create give more light, more natural light, and more view to all the dwellings. And again, the appropriation is absolutely amazing and absolutely different in every dwelling, with no need to explain anything. It's a kind of natural ability of the inhabitants to create their own environment if the conditions are given to have this freedom. And this change in the living space, this extension, they produce themselves another image of the building, another architecture, another aesthetics, which radically change also the aspect and the view of this building. So one of the small buildings that was transformed into this situation. We took also the opportunity that we had very large flat roofs to integrate additional houses on the rooftop, some bigger houses which are not existing inside, built with chimneys, with very simple construction system like case studies, but in a fantastic situation on the roof at the 16th level, with part of the large winter garden, quite narrow, so the view on both sides is amazing. And also the inside with their more conventional rooms, the living room. And all this project transformed the neighborhood radically. Just a few numbers to show that in following the explanations on the numbers of the previous project, here we are in a similar situation. That it means that doing that is less is more sustainable, creates a second cycle of life of the buildings, create a better conditions of comfort, of use, of pleasure for the inhabitants, and is less expensive than demolitions and rebuild. So in this case, we conserved 100% of the existing, with 20% with a heavy renovation and 80% with light renovation. We added 53% of surface, more or less an average of 50 square meters by dwelling in winter gardens, balcony, but also interior cellars. And doing these winter gardens, we save 60% of the primary energy consumption, which brings the buildings to a good standard of low consumption building. 100% of the building was occupied during the work, no move of the inhabitants. There is no increase of rent plus charges, which remains at the end the same. And the cost of this, the construction works for the transformation was 50,000 euros net, while the cost for demolition and rebuild has been estimated by the municipality by 160,000 euros. And what is interesting is that it's social housing, public social housing, but all the same, the company funded 80% of this project and received only 20% subsidies. So all these projects, and in the suburbs, there are so many examples like this, and it's absolutely necessary to think to the transformation of these neighborhoods. And if you remember this picture that Jean-Philippe showed with the houses and the big blocks working all together or talking all together, and it's clear that it's they can talk together, but the goal is that both provide for the inhabitants the best conditions of living, and this is also our goal in any project. So all these situations, there are so many in all the suburbs that for the architects it's an important work to take care to all of this, to inventory all of this situation, and to see case by case how to improve radically the situation, but also how to find here and there some conditions of a good densification, which also allows to have a better economy of all these projects. But at the end, it's only for the best conditions of living for anyone. That's it. Thank you very much.
Grazie mille, merci beaucoup. Ok, il faut... Oui, ok. Stiamo di nuovo... Sorry, in English. Okay, I see Chiara Tonelli at the Biennale di Venezia, probably. No, what is your back screen? I don't know. And I don't know if Giovanni Longobardi is still there, because he said that he had problem in Venice. He tried to enter in a room and then, okay, he lost the connection, but maybe he's now with us. Not.
So
anyway.
All Italians in Venice today.
Yes, of course. Just you and us, we are at home. So, but Giovanni Longobardi sent me a message saying that he's really happy to have you with us, and he's really happy that you won the Pritzker Prize, because you are the more, I don't know how to translate, more far from the Archistar system, and so it is really fantastic that that you won. So everybody, we are really happy for you and for the world in general, because maybe something is changing with the COVID. I don't know.
Yeah, we hope.
Yes. So now I have invited Chiara Tonelli and Fabrizio Finucci to discuss with you. You know Chiara very well, because she invited you in Rome also, and did you an interview, I remember. And so she is more in the technological field, while Fabrizio Finucci is a professor, is architect, and he is a professor of economics. And so I think he's really interested by what you have shown, because me and Fabrizio, we work in the same laboratory. So we train the student in this direction. So I think they're two good people also to to talk with you. Okay, I don't know, maybe I give the floor to Chiara, because maybe she is in Venice, she has to escape. I don't know if you are inside or outside the Biennale, so it's up to you.
Okay, nice to see you again.
Hello.
Hello.
Jean-Philippe, bonjour. And I'm very happy to listen to your lecture today. I'm in Venice for the Biennale. You know, there is the Architecture Biennale.
Yeah.
And I have maybe a first question that is not very linked with what you show us, but I think it could be interesting to know your opinion, because the Biennale this year is dealing with how we will live together, I can say again. So, and this kind of social housing is something that we can imagine also a way to put people together and to people happiness in their own dwelling, but also they can have their own their social relationship. I remember you told me that people, when you build, when you reconstruct, when you renovate the building, people deal with the enterprise, with the people, with the workers. So there is a social relationship always in this kind of job. But nowadays in this pandemic, what have been changed, what will remain changed, and what we can see differently for the future? What is your opinion on this this topic of how we will live together again, and should we will have a new social way to live together?
I think it's for me it was before the pandemic and after the pandemic, and perhaps the pandemic helps us to see the things a little better. But I think the question was the same before in a way. It means that the only way to create the best conditions for living all together is to do the best in any case. It means that we have to search as architects and urban planners how it is possible to give more freedom for everyone. More freedom, it means that the flat, it is not something that in which you find like in a jail behind a little window. It is just a space where you have possibilities to invite people, possibilities to move, possibilities to not to be constrained because your bed is exactly at this place and the electricity is exactly there, and all your gestures each day are exactly the same. No, it's a place where finally you can change your mind, start to make paintings. So the space is very important. The light, the natural light is also very important. With the maximum of natural light, you have always the possibilities to filter a little, to close completely, to open totally, to go to the winter garden, to the balcony. So the freedom is, and for architects, how we can find the conditions to give this freedom, and we see precisely that economically it is possible to find the solutions to do this maximum better than the standard is doing a minimum. So actually, this for me, this is the main question, the main topic, all together with all the good minds. I think it's totally possible. The only problem it is to how we can fight against the speculation on the cities, because more and more the flat is no more a space of freedom and of pleasure. It becomes a financial product. So how can we deal with that? So I think we perhaps it means that with the inhabitants, with the citizens that are more and more involved in the quality of their city, we have to defend them instead to defend the companies that want to build for them.
Yeah, what is clear also is that can we imagine to live well together if we are not well individually? So it's clear that, and especially the housing is one of the most critical issue of being well, because if you are not well at home, all the problems become much bigger. So it's why that for us it's clear, and it was clear much before the pandemic, that giving space, giving air, giving freedom, giving possibility of distance inside the place to live, is a condition to live well in the family, but also the condition to live well with the others, because it fosters the quality of the relationships. At the opposite, if everyone is too constrained, it accentuates the tension. It accentuates the problems. So for us, it's absolutely clear today, even more than yesterday, that this issue of quality and the generosity of the living space is a crucial point in the quality of the living of the society altogether. So and the pandemic has really shown how too many people are living in bad conditions. So it's clear for us.
Yes, I agree with you completely. I think that, I mean, your solution, your proposal is really the answer for the post-pandemic, because people want what you did, and now they realize it, because they spend so much time in their house, and they know how it is now, much better than before, when they were free to go outside also.
It cannot replace the collective life and the cafe and the restaurants and the theaters, etc. But I think the urban life is made of space where you can have a sort of positive loneliness, a sort of positive quietness, and possibility of freedom, but also in the same time to have the possibility to be in the dynamism of the city. And these two situations really need to be all together.
Okay, let's move to a technological question. And you already answered to me a few years ago when I interviewed you. And the magazine, it's now on paper, and just 2 days ago, so it's really new. I will send to you a PDF copy for sure, and if you want, also a hard copy, with pleasure. But I think for people who are listening to us, it's important to know, because considering that the solution of extra space, all these terraces and winter garden that you put on the facades, I think it's important to know how you can link these two technologies. So 60 years, a technology from the 60s, where the concrete was very imprecise, I can say. So you can have 3 meters, but you can have 3.5 meters in the next, space, and how you can link these two technologies. I mean, one very, very precise, the new one, the prefabricated one, and the other that is an imprecise technologies in itself. I mean, it's not depending just of the time where they were built, but also because it's the concrete technology it's more imprecise than the steel one and the wood one. I think
it is first. It's important to say that each situation is different. When we work in Paris, it was different than when we went in Bordeaux. When we went in Saint-Nazaire, it was different when we went in Paris or Bordeaux. So it means in all situations, probably the answer is not exactly the same. So you have to adapt, and I think precisely this question of adaptation, it is precisely what is interesting today for architects, to find a way to link, to find the connection, the little bridge that will make the junction between two buildings. For example, in Bordeaux, or also in the two other situations, the buildings they are independent structurally. They are just stabilized with the existing building, but they have their own foundations for the extension. So it means that each time we have to deal. For example, in Saint-Nazaire, the height under ceiling in the existing was very, very low, just 245. But with the existing, we find a system that was able to also to have small floors for the new extensions. So each time, I think there is a solution. It's today we are working with the students in Berlin on the Plattenbau. That is this big number of similar buildings in all the European part of the Europe, and there are many typologies, and there is always a solution for each typology. I had a very good student also in Berlin. She Italian student, Laura Izzo, and she works on the Le Vele di Scampia in Napoli. It was also a very interesting building, and it was interesting to see what the architect wanted at the beginning, what it was not able to do totally exactly like he wanted, and how it was, and from this situation, how we can continue. Sometimes to come back to the first intentions of the architect, but always with the minimum, in a sort of gentle adaptation of the system. And it seems that in any situation, there is always something possible.
Mm. And about different techniques, it's clear that when we analyzed all these buildings, and it became clear for us that we should avoid to intervene strongly in the existing techniques, in the existing structures, because you never know how it is done. And if we want to make affordable also this generosity of extension, because probably that's giving such a quality to everyone is to use what we already have and expand it, because it's much less expensive than building new. But it's clear that we understood after this very precise analysis that finally the addition, combining existing structure that we keep as it is with a new structure which is independent, and both are just simply connected, was the solution in any case, because the extension, in fact, out of giving more space, allows to solve many technical issues like the energy, insulation, but also technical issues like fire security, many things. So it's more interesting to combine the two without interfering too much.
It's why this when we say plus, it's very important. It means addition. It is always an addition, and this is very important. And also we can understand very well economically how it works, because you have one, you add 50% to one, and that the result is 1.5. When if you have one and you demolish one and you rebuild one, it is clear that it is much more expensive,
still one.
and you have only one.
Or sometimes 0.9.
And it is valid economically, but ecologically.
Yeah.
It is amazing to see now how much CO2 you waste when you demolish and rebuild. It's incredible. And today to say, okay, I will make a sort of eco quartier somewhere, and at first I will demolish, it is totally crazy, because probably you spend 100 years of CO2 that the beginning at that the existing building would not have spent during these 100 years.
Yeah, also the trash you create, demolishing, it's something that is environmentally not very good.
Yeah. And this is the same for the use of new materials. It has been proved by studies of a French institution about the environment that the transformation or renovation of an existing building consumes 80 times less new materials than the new construction, in terms of volume, in terms of quantity of weight. So it means that, for example, if you demolish and if you rebuild with wood, of course, if you just take the wood construction, it appears as very virtuous. But if you consider the whole process, in fact, the wood doesn't compensate at all the less value of the of the demolition. So it's why we are so much engaged in this in this issue of no demolition.
Yeah. Okay, I think I had to left the room to Fabrizio, and so congratulations again for the prize. Really good.
Thank you.
I will send you the magazine. Thank you, Picha. Thank you, Fabrizio.
Thank you. And just to say that I've seen that there are Professor Talamona, Professor Scimeni, and Professor Calcagnini with us in Teams. So if you want to intervene, but to everybody, yes. Also the people that are in Facebook, now there are 60 people, but there were hundreds of people before. And Maddalena Scimeni wants to talk. Okay, I give the floor to Fabrizio, then to Maddalena. And if somebody wants to ask something by Facebook, I'm following also Facebook. Fabrizio.
Yes, thank you, Francesco, and good evening. And first of all, let me say thank you for your presence, for your beautiful presentation. It was really interesting, like always, and really exciting. So thank you again. My question deals with economics, which seems an important part of your job again, and even because it deals with my point of view and with my job in architecture. Economics was always being defined, especially in the 19th century, like the dismal science or the sad science, no? And even because they were highlighting its rigid mathematical formalism and the tragedy of the prediction. Even with other marginalist school, it's always the science of the scarcity, the science of the choice, the science of the optimization. And nowadays, these sciences keep being blamed for the major of the global disaster, even because it has been opposed to different moral, environmental, social, or ethical political theories. From my point of view, you with your architecture turn upside down this concept. No, you take it and you really turn it upside down, composing two contrasting points. When you say that you realize pluses, added spaces, or a surplus, and citing your words, you literally consider the economy as a tool for generosity and freedom. In a way, you are in opposition to the classical market economy conception or essence, because you are giving something more, you are creating something more. You are behaving like different point of view on the economy, such like the gift economy or the civil economy. But on the other hand, in the same time, you have to deal and contrast with the market economy, because you have to work with the budget, you have to work with the cost, with the individual values, individual positions, making a balance between individual life and public life, which is still an economic point of view. So I reached the shell of my question. I'm curious about your creative process, how these different balances, these different topics, which kind of position have in your creative process are melted in the generally point of view of the complexity, because you have to deal even with the shapes, environment, welfare of the people, or is something that run parallelly? It's a verification. It's today with your presentation seems a starting point of view. So which is the position of the toes in your creative process? This is my questions, and thank you again.
No, I think it's very interesting. I think at any time it was for me, architecture was to use some tools that were the characteristic of the period in which you were building. For example, I think the less is more of myth in the 30s, which was meaning, it's possible to use less materials to produce a nice space, has totally changed today. So we have to consider today what is less today. and probably the less is to less the smallest budget, and to do the maximum with the smallest budget finally is connected with the terms in which the society is working today. So we use them. For example, when we built the house Latapie, which was our first project, it was clear that we would not find the solution by reading architectural reviews. But when we decided to go to find a sort of where the good sense happens, and when we go at the periphery to see the greenhouses where people were making tomatoes, and when we went to see the atelier, the garage, the construction of supermarkets or little supermarkets, etc., we find our references of cheap of economy in these situations. It has to be solid, it has to be efficient, it has to be resistant, but it has to be incredibly efficient. And with the smallest price to do the maximum. And we try to use these components. And after that, what was interesting, it is the mixing of systems. So if you take some systems from the agriculture and you take some systems from industry, but you bring them together, and with this material, you make something new, which is a flat or an apartment. And for us, it was immediately very important to understand these situations. Also to say we have to not to ask our economist, that is your part and our part is different. No, I think as for structure, as for thermal questions, as for acoustic, you have specialists, but as an architect, you have to define the line. You have to give with your intuition, which is totally different than the one of the economist or the specialist in acoustic, which is made of your observation. What do you learn when you go in the periphery? What do you learn when you go in the greenhouses? What do you learn when you go in very warm countries? What do you learn when you go in very cold countries? And all of this is your intuition with what you learn. You work as an architect, and it defines a line. And this line, you have to explain your specialists that they have to go in that direction. And very often it is not the line they prefer. But with that, you touch this question of economy. When, for example, if you make a project and you say it will be a general contractor that will make this project, you know that you will have a more interesting cost if you ask different artisans or little entrepreneurs. And it is also much more interesting to work with them than to work with a very big company that will do everything. When we make the project in Mulhouse and dealing with a general contractor, he sees that we make some buildings, flats that were 3 times bigger than the standard. Okay, for him it was the cost by square meter, he multiplied the number of square meters by the cost and he fixed the price. But in fact, when you ask one carpenter, when you ask one manufacturer for greenhouses, one people for the facade, and it's only you that make the addition at the end. Nobody knows that it will be a flat. And when you make the addition, you control the system. And then it is with all these systems that we are interested to work, because what is important at the end, it is we don't want to reduce our ambitions.
Yeah. So this is
and with this work on economy, we find our freedom.
Yeah. No, it's clear that this is the beginning. The beginning is not to start with in saying, okay, I will make it cheap. I will not spend money, because it has no sense in itself. The very beginning is the ambition and the generosity of space that we want absolutely to give to the projects. And we don't want to compromise, not to give up with this ambition. So in any conditions of economy, of budget, so it's clear that we have to find the solutions. It means that it forces to think to the essential, to make hierarchies. What is the most important? What is not important? And also And it was a work that we did it was a very early house that we did in Bordeaux more than 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And it's important to understand what makes the cost of things, what makes the cost of the construction. As Jean-Philippe said, it's not just to take a list and say, okay, I multiply a cost per square meter. No, it's much more detailed than that. And we understood that finally what makes the cost of architecture, this is not the space, this is not the surface, this is the unnecessary complexity of building. And when you understand that, it's clear that you are looking for a simple solution, but at the end which produce the same amount and the same quality of space. So it requires to study very well all the systems of production of materials, all the process to master them. And at the moment you master them, you are absolutely free of increasing your ambition.
Really thanks, Eva, for the words unnecessary complexity. That was really, really clear enough. So it means that in economics, like in architecture, from in to out has to be look for the solution. Thank you very much again. I give the words to other colleagues that want to give a question. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fabrizio, also for your question, and Jean-Philippe for your answer. And I don't know if Maddalena Scimeni wanted to ask something. Yeah, you're there. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Hello, thank you. So good evening. I'm very, very grateful for this amazing opportunity for the students and also for me. I'm rather new in Rome, but I'm really, really appreciated your talk. And I've looked at your work since years, and I must say that the students are always very curious about what you do. And I'm very happy for this big acknowledgement that finally the community gave you. So that said, I just want to make a very quick question, because I'm curious about the process of the story that you are going to tell once you explain your project to the developers or to the political, let's say, people that you have to deal with. And I'm curious about the facade for the Bordeaux job, because for what I understood, you have about 4 meters of projection with these prefabricated new floors, and for what I understood, you have about 3 meters for the winter garden and 1 of the balcony. So I'm very curious about the presence of this balcony. Do you think it is a space that is used by the people? Do you think it's something that is needed by an outside look of the facade? Do you think it's important for the lightness of the whole balance? Do you think is an extra space that is needed just because it's there? It's a sort of a filter from the outside and the inside. Because when you talk about having 24 square meters added, it's something immediately convincing. Now anyone would say yes immediately, thank you. But then you give up a strip, which is 1 meter, and I'm really curious about the genesis of this idea and about what you have in mind in framing in this way the facade, the new facade, which is I think it's something that you have thought a lot about. So thank you for your answer, if possible.
For example, on the second question, if you want, I can say there is many reasons that can be more architectural or technical. The technical, it is for fire security. Because in fact, you need to have a distance between flats, which the one under and the one just above, for protection. If a fire happens in the flat below, it will go through the facade and it will connect to the facade above. So you need to have a distance. So or you make the facade above with fire security glass, which is cost a lot, or you create this this dimension in concrete, that horizontal and also a little vertical, that will bring the flame outside and that will not communicate the fire with the apartment above. So it is this, but there is another reason, and which is much more linked with the architecture and what we think. We think that this idea that we live in houses, in villa, even if we are in the city, is very important. So for us, it is the continuity of the floor, of the ground. When we say it is a villa at all levels, it means that we have all the elements, the spaces that we have if we have a house with garden. And so it means that we have a space that is heated. Then we have a space that is non-heated, which is a winter garden. And we have also a space which is outside. And because we have sliding panels, all these spaces can communicate, make only one, or make a little balcony alone and the winter garden and the apartment together, or they can make the apartment alone and the winter garden plus the balcony together. So it is this system of filters that for us is very important. It means that we have the maximum ground terrain as possible, and on this terrain we have different layers of filters that create all the possible combination between the climates and the just to the outside. And it is for us very important because precisely this idea of a terrain, it's always why we never have a total global envelope from the above to the ground, but each time a sort of human dimension, which is repeated at the number of levels. And to show that for us, it is important because it is to see the human dimension from outside. You see the layers of grounds
where people walk
at different levels. And this, for us, in all our projects, we have this balcony, but sometimes it is, yes, it is small, 1 meter or 1.2, but sometimes if you open the winter garden, it is large because it is connected with the winter garden. So for us, it is also this intermediate climatic zones that are very, very important.
Right.
The first, you answer the first question. First question, it was about the.
The question was about this, and another question was about the efficiency of the work site. You have already answered, okay. But I imagine that the time that you spend in these work sites is amazing, and I also imagine how difficult it is to delegate this role. So, given the big map that you showed at the end of the lecture with so many critical new projects for the future.
It is, but it is also related with the number of architects. And it is really what we believe. It is that we have to change the way we intervene in the city and in the landscape. In the existing city, it is no more a general plan, a master plan that works. In the existing city, we have to deal with the complexity of the city, and this complexity, through the eye of the architect, it becomes a richness. It becomes an opportunity. It becomes a resource. And we have to work with these very, very small resources. And we have to find the solutions for the very small details or very small problems. And when you give the answers to these problems and when you use these resources, you start to make urbanism. And if you develop these systems in many places at different points, it creates the new city. So in fact, we have really for me to invest today in the existing city, the way of the practice, which is not an urbanist and then many architects. It is first many architects and it produces the urban quality.
Yeah, I think it means that finally the strategy of the from inside out is also the one which is relevant today to make urban planning.
But this inside out, it is exactly the same as the inside out that Francisco practice in the periphery, in the grass, in the abandoned areas of. He is on Earth. He is not in his office. Looking at the city from very far away. He's talking with the people, he's taking a cafe, he's sitting there, it takes time, he tastes he smells the trees and the flowers, he is in the real city, and it is at this dimension that is important. There is no more to think about the city at 1,500 or 2,000 or one. There is only one dimension. It is the real one, the reality.
Thank you very much. I hope there will be many other opportunities to hear you, and I thank you so much. Grazie Francesco, grazie Fabrizio e Chiara.
Grazie Maddalena. I have a question from Facebook. It is Fabrizio Gallanti that said that he will meet you in Paris in some days, and he say, I'm always curious to know who are their reference in the history. I mean, in the history of architecture, I imagine.
So we will think about it and reply to him next week.
No, but there are many references. We are totally curious. We have also. It's interesting to learn from the history of architecture. I am always amazed when I go to Italy to see all the layers of the historical layers of the cities. It is in Perugia, I remember, but in many places it is, it is very interesting. But for sure, Jacques Ondelat was a very important reference. But also at his time, we were so much influenced by Mies van der Rohe, because it seems that it was coming to this. To this, how to do the maximum with the minimum, and with this idea of freedom. We were impressed by Case Study House program, which was a social housing program in the US in the 50s. Albert Frey, so many, Kazuo Shinora, so plenty of architects that are different. And we are really impressed by their works, and that influence us all the time.
Now it's clear that the reference are in a way like the projects. It's not a whole. It's a kind of multitude of fragments, and you can use a reference to this from coming from somewhere, and another reference, and all of them they remix. So that's. It's not it's not a building as a whole or a site as a whole. It's all these fragments that take from different backgrounds, and that we can assemble or infinitely reassemble.
And it is also because today the climatic question is so important. It is very much from our experience in Africa, but also when we went to Granada, in the gardens in Granada with this kind of cool air in a very hot city. It is the towers of in the Yemen with wind towers. It is all these elements that are so important, but it is also in more general movements. We are extremely interested by the modern movement in architecture, and we are totally opposite to the modern movement in its urbanism. And we were much more interested by the utopian systems of Yona Friedman or by Archigram, Cedric Price, that were much more clear, much more intelligent, considering the existing city than the modern movement that it defines itself in the Siam. So I am okay with the plan libre, les pilotis, the roof terrace, the ramps, etc. But I am totally against the tabula rasa that was expressed by the same movement. And all this connected it makes it's also a continuous process of adaptation of references, memories, the situations, failures, successes that we have to bring economy today. We have to bring for our practice of today.
Okay, I completely agree, of course. This is why I said we are a lot of people winning with you your
Yes,
prize.
it's why each year at UDK I have a special class on urban question, and I call it Stalker.
Grazie. Okay, I don't know if there are other questions. I see there is one, but no, it's architecture is beginning to be a category that seems to be too small to solve the complex contemporary equation. Is it necessary to think interdisciplinary about the city? Greetings from Argentina. Okay, Leandro Zapata. Eliana Cangelli, another one. Ciao Piccio, would you ask them if they it's about law norms? Which kind of problem you found with the law, with the come si dice normative, le norme. The technique norm, the French technique norm, they don't give you limits to augment with say cubatura, but let's say square meter. There are some limits. I know that your answer, we talk many times about that. But and then another, there are no vincolo, I don't know how to say in English, in French, let's say limit to for the occupation of the soil in the ground floor. We have to understand how we have to change our law, our normative, if we want to do your project in Italy, because probably your project, they are not possible in Italy. I know that we can open now a large discussion. I just asked you to be short because it would be nice if we stop before 8. I have to do a conference in Brazil at 8. Sorry, or else I leave you with the public and you go for hours. But I will say
you will miss your flight.
Okay, so there are many questions. If you want to say,
yeah.
Okay.
Now, I think about the normatives. I'm pretty sure that they are similar in Italy or anywhere, because in a way it's. But it's clear that we of course we have a lot of problems with it, and because there are too many normatives everywhere. But we study carefully and we see if in the normatives where is a very small gap where we can pass to reach the same goals, but to do it in a different way. And this is where we find the solutions. Not in we respect the normatives in the spirit, but we try to find where is this small gap to do it with a different method, with different tools. And of course, it requires to struggle a little bit and to defend very often the solutions. But it's clear that it needs to develop more studies, more arguments. Yeah, but it's all the projects that we have shown about the extension were not easy. So we found the solution, but we are absolutely confident that, or not confident, but quite sure that the rules are not so different in other countries.
No, I think we have to adapt in any case, and we find the solutions. In Germany, they are different. In Switzerland, they are different. So, yeah, what for us is important is a sort of good sense. So, if you work with good sense, I think at one moment, even the norm or the rule will change because of the good sense that you develop. Oh. And we have seen that, for example, the window gardens, they were not taken in the thermal calculation, and now they are, or something like that. And about the cubature, I think it's very important because, in fact, when you extend a building of 3 meters or 4 meters, in fact, at the end, it is to intensify a situation. And when you intensification of situation, it means that where it is built, you can try to be more dense. But where it is unbuilt, you don't build there. So it means that when you build at the extreme proximity of the existing buildings, you save ground. You save ground with trees, with grass, etc. And you don't go further in the city. And I think, so for us, it is always a good sense that the slogan that are given by the municipalities today, which are affordability, which is saving ground, which are ecology, which are all these things like that, we take them. And sometimes we see the norms are not related with these wishes of the municipality. And then we have to explain that if we want to go in their ideas, perhaps sometimes the rules have to be improved or change a little. Step by step.
But it's important to always question the norms and not just to accept them as they are, because we could observe in many projects that finally it's a project that push the norms to change. And if we have to wait that the norm change, there is no reason to change. So it's a project that push it. And it's why we, as all the architects, we have to take also this opportunity as even a little to try to challenge the norm.
And about the teams of experts, or I think it's clear that we have to work with artists, we have to work with sociologists, we have to work with politicians. Yeah, I think it's important. Yeah.
Yes, I've learned this answer. No, when somebody asks me if I'm doing something too much out of the law or not inside the norm, and the word is normogeneratore. It is a normogenerative project. So yeah. I'm generating new norms. So I'm experimenting, and this is what we have to do, because you have to play, of course, with that. And and maybe this is a good word to learn for everybody when they ask you when they say that it's impossible to do that.
Yes, sometimes you have the feeling you lose your energy, but also at the end you have to take it the same way as the economy. It has to take it in a positive way.
Verissimo, really true. I think I don't know if in our panel of teams there is somebody who wants to ask something more, Fabrizio, or okay, or maybe we can also stop here.
I think I already bothered them.
Fabrizio, what do you say? What you want to do?
No. I say that I already bothered them. That I had the same question about the rules and the norms and the law, and it's sometimes difficult to imagine this kind of processes and projects that can be suitable for different regions. And if we think about some strict law, it's the only answer is what to say, that you have to start to look from in and then going slowly and parallelly from inside to outside. I mean, that is the only way to give an answer to some difficult particular problems. It seems that there was another hand, that someone else raised up an hand. If there are any other question for the guest? No.
No, there are many compliments. Thanks. Thanks you so much. So inspiring. Fantastica conferenza. Marie Limois, amazing architect and people, so happy that even the Pritzker has understood how important this way of addressing architecture and the city is. Okay, so, but there are a lot, I am not
Thank you.
saying everything.
Thank you. For us to listen this.
Ok, Anne et Jean-Philippe, on va boire quelque chose alors, on se voit au coin ici.
D'accord. En fait, we are around the corner.
Yes.
On invite les Brésiliens.
Okay, no, last time we were in Monte Testaccio, we transpassed the fence and we entered. It was fantastic.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Now they've closed it. It's impossible to enter.
You don't find it yet, but soon.
Va bene, grazie mille Anne et Jean-Philippe. Merci beaucoup.
Arrivederci.
Thank you again and
See you in Rome.
soon, I hope.
Yeah,
In Rome, in presence in Rome.
Okay, in Roma. Okay, thank to you. Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, grazie mille.
Goodbye.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.
Je vous embrasse.
Ciao, ciao.
À bientôt à Paris aussi, peut-être.
Eh oui, ce serait bien.